This lesson is on finding the volume of cylinders. First, let's look at this exploration question at the top. A cylindrical stack of coins and the dimensions of an individual coin are shown below. If you need to find the amount of three-dimensional space taken up by the stack of coins, how could you use the dimensions of the individual coin to help? So what we can do here is we can find the area that's taken up by this one coin, and we could use that to find out how much space more coins would take up. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 coins. The area of that one coin, or that one circle, would be pi r squared. For this, we're going to use 3.14 for pi. The radius, of course, is half of the diameter. So it would be 3.14 times 2 squared, which gives us 12.56. So if one coin takes up 12.56, then how can we figure out how much space 10 coins would take up? We would just multiply it. So this whole stack of coins would take up 125.6. Now we're going to look at the actual formula and process for finding the volume of a cylinder. First, let's talk about some vocabulary. So volume. Volume is the amount of three-dimensional space that is occupied by an object. Volume can also be referred to as capacity. So the capacity of a tank of water or a pool is also another way to say volume. To find the volume of a cylinder, we're just going to multiply the area of the base, which is going to be a circle, by the height of the cylinder. Since the area, or since the base of a cylinder is always a circle, to find the area, we're going to use pi r squared. So we'll take that pi r squared and multiply it by the height. So the formula for volume is pi r squared height, where h is the height and b is the area of the base, which for a circle is pi r squared. So what's really important here is that the formula for the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared height. For these example problems, we're going to use the pi button on our calculator instead of using 3.14. It's important that you pay attention to what the problem tells you to do for pi. If it tells you to use 3.14, then you can use 3.14. If it doesn't specify, then you should use the pi button. All right, so let's look at this first example. We have a radius of 6 and a height of 4. Our formula is that volume equals pi r squared height. So when I plug in the values, that becomes pi times 6 squared times 4. When I put that in my calculator, I get 452.39. Our direction said to round to the nearest hundredth, so we have to go to that second place after the decimal. And volume is measured in units cubed. So the unit we were given here is inches, and it's going to be units cubed, so that's inches cubed. Looking at the next problem, we've been given our height, but we haven't been given our radius. We've been given the diameter instead. radius is the diameter divided by 2. So here our radius is 8/2, or 4. Again, our formula for a cylinder is that volume equals pi r squared height, or pi times 4 squared times 10. And again, for this one, I'm using the pi button in my calculator, not 3.14, because the problem didn't specify. And when I calculate that, I get 502.65 centimeters cubed. On this next problem, I want you to pause the video and try it yourself and come back to check your work. For this last example here, you should have gotten pi times 5 squared times 2.5. And when you plug that into your calculator, you should have gotten 196.35 cubic feet, or feet cubed. Remember, it's important that they gave you the diameter. So to find radius, you should have divided that diameter by 2. Sometimes you might be asked to leave your answer in terms of pi, and what that means is to multiply everything except for pi and leave the pi symbol in your solution. So looking at this fourth example here, I know that my volume formula is pi r squared height. My r is 10 and my h is 15.2. So in terms of pi, I would multiply everything except for the pi. So 10 squared times 15.2 is 1,520. So this becomes 1,520 pi. If I wanted to fully solve that out, I would then multiply it by the pi button in my calculator, and I would get 4,775.2 cubic millimeters. So basically, if you're leaving your answer in terms of pi, all you're doing is skipping a step. So again, looking at this fifth example, volume is pi r squared height. They gave me diameter. I have to divide it by 2 to find r. H is 7. So in terms of pi, I would do pi times 8 squared times 7. But I'm not going to multiply by pi yet, so 8 squared times 7 is 448. I'm going to leave that pi symbol, and my unit is cubic inches. Now, if I want that to the nearest tenth, I just go back into my calculator and multiply by pi. And I get 1,407.4 cubic inches. Now I want you to try example 6 on your own and come back and check your work. So if you leave your answers in terms of pi, you should have gotten 9 pi cubic yards. When you multiplied that 9 by pi, you should have gotten 28.3 yards cubed, or cubic yards, when you rounded to the nearest tenth. Now we're going to use what we've learned about finding the volume of cylinders, and we're going to apply it to some word problems. So looking at this first word problem, the area of the base of a cylinder is 150 square inches. If the volume of the cylinder is 1,050 inches cubed, what is the height of the cylinder? So this one's a little tricky. They didn't give me the height. They also didn't give me radius. What they gave me was the volume and the area of the base. Well, I know that the area of the base is pi r squared, right? So if volume equals pi r squared height, then they gave me this section. So they gave me the volume, They gave me pi r squared. They did not give me the height. So I have to solve for height. And when I do that, I'm going to divide by pi r squared, or in this case, 150. And that will leave me with h. And when I divide, I get that 1050 divided by 150 is 7. So the height of that cylinder is 7 inches. Now we're going to look at this next problem. The volume of a cylinder is 942 cubic feet. If the height of the cylinder is 12 feet, what is the radius? And this problem specifies to use 3.14 for pi. So I'm going to write out my formula, and I'm going to fill in whatever I can fill in. They gave me volume. They told me that pi is 3.14. I do not know radius, and I know that the height is 12. On the right side, I'm multiplying everything. So in order to move it to the other side, I have to divide. So I'm going to divide by 3.14 times 12. Which is 37.68. That cancels out pi and 12. When I divide 942 by 37.68, I get 25 equals r squared. Now we know that the opposite of squaring something is taking the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and that will leave me with r on one side, and the square root of 25 is 5. So the radius is 5 feet. Our next question says that Leanne's cylindrical water tank in her backyard has a diameter of 3 meters and a height of 2 meters. What is the capacity of the water tank? Round to the nearest hundredth. Well, remember that capacity is another word for volume. So she's got a cylindrical water tank. And that tank has a diameter of 3 and a height of 2. So I need to find the capacity, or the volume. Well, volume is pi r squared height. Now this problem didn't specify whether to use pi or 3.14, so we're going to use the pi key. So I don't know the volume. I'm using the pi key. I don't really know my radius because they gave me diameter, but I can find it by dividing the diameter by 2 and getting 1.5. And then multiplying by the height, which is 2. When I key that into my calculator, I get that the volume, or the capacity, is 14.14 cubic meters, or meters cubed. Remember that we were rounding to the nearest hundredth. Had we been rounding to the nearest tenth, it would have just been 14.1. This last question says, Drew and Bo each brought a cylindrical water bottle to football practice. Drew's water bottle has a diameter of 3 inches and a height of 7 inches. So let's go ahead and draw Drew's water bottle. With a diameter of 3 and a height of 7. Bo's water bottle has a radius of 2 inches and a height of 9 inches. Whose water bottle holds more water, and how much more does it hold? Round to the nearest hundredth. Again, this question doesn't specify whether to use the pi key or 3.14, so we're going to use the pi key. Let's work on Drew's water bottle first. Now, Drew's water bottle gave us the diameter, so we have to divide that by 2 to get the radius. So that's going to be pi times 1.5 squared times 7. Which is 49.48. For Beau's water bottle, it's pi times 2 squared times 9, which is 113.10. Now to find out whose holds more, I have to subtract them. Obviously, Beau's holds more, and when I subtract, I get 63.62 cubic inches. So Beau's water bottle holds 63.62 cubic inches more water than Drew's bottle.